G'day everyone and welcome to this week's Camera Ready Confessions, a weekly live stream bridging personal branding and video marketing so you shine as the obvious choice. I'm your host Zoë Wood, your video confidence coach, and thank you for watching or listening to this live stream on all platforms that you can see. First link in the description, you can find out all the details of where we are, and also you can check out the show notes at vcc.training/camera-ready-confessions, which is where I keep all the show notes, all the backups of all these live streams, and any other information and FAQs that you have about the session today. All right, we are looking good for audio. Yes, I have taken your comments over the past couple of weeks where we've been a little bit hot, and not just my beautiful makeup today, even though I tried to follow a look that I saw where it was vertical and horizontal, and I don't think the horizontal one is coming out as, if I go like this, you can kind of see it, compared to the vertical one, which is a lot thicker, which now that I look at it, I probably should thicken this up. So I'll probably do that at some point today, but probably not as we are here live, because I want to give my attention to you and not just my makeup. Even though it looks good, I do agree, I do need to give you my attention. So thank you for joining us all. Before I continue, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians on the land on which I conduct my business. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to face discrimination and disadvantage due to our country's colonial past. I stand with them in their fight against injustice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And make sure to check out any of your upcoming local events and festivities, especially for your local corporations, as we are moving more towards the end of the year, where people are gearing up for the holiday season. Please make sure that you support your local Indigenous traders at markets, shops and fairs. They will always be gracious for you. And looking over this past week, here at Video Confidence Coach, it's been rather quiet. To be honest, we've taken a little bit of a week off. Not exactly planned, but with aspects of stress, mental health, and personal stuff, kind of needed to take this week to ourselves. So if I have missed any of your emails or any of your communications, I sincerely apologize. Life's been hard, and it has been hard for everyone, so I want to thank you all for your patience, and as of today, I'm back on board, so after my commitments this morning, I will be getting back to you promptly. I want to briefly thank Alex, Nadine, Kelsey, and Jeff for the conversations that we've had this week, including our one-to-ones, our disco chats, as well as some future projects coming down the pipeline, so I want to thank you all for your conversations this week. And looking over to the Unboring Your Brand podcast. So this is the podcast where I record episodes here live on the live stream, as well as other things that I find and I put in the live stream. So far we are up to episode 125. That's 125 episodes. And this episode is Stop Marketing to Everyone and Find Your People. This was a bit more of a oldie but a goodie in the sense of it's very foundational work, but I do believe that foundational work is still relevant to everyone and to people, and also to myself. And we pulled a couple of pieces out of the archive, not that have been on the podcast before, but older pieces to me, and everything was still sound. So I'm proud of Zoe for everything still being for still being correct, which I am give myself a pat on the back for that one, and I thank past Zoe for sticking to the foundational works for everyone. And if you want to find out more details, you can find all the details in the description below, where you can find out the podcast as well as all the show notes and information there. So let's get on to today's topic, so what I like to do is I like to do a little bit of a rant about the major topic of today's live stream, and then we move on to community questions, which are supposed to be short, sharp answers to community questions. Does it always happen? No. Do I try? Yes. See how we go today. These have a bit of a theme, so hopefully they should be all to work together, which will be nice. And then we will do a episode recording of Stop algorithm-led learning. And this is a subject which I have had a fair few conversations about this week, so I wanted to bring that into a podcast episode with you today. But let's move on to today's topic. As perfection, polish, and AI-ness is becoming the norm, how machine looked and generated text, images, video are slowly becoming the norm. Why? Because it takes the effort and energy away from human beings. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? We'll get on to that in today's episode. But I wanted to answer the question that I've received recently, where over the past live streams, talks, workshops, podcast episodes, and various things where I put myself about, because of course I put myself everywhere for your benefit, of course. The question that I've received a couple of times recently is messy video actually more authentic? Because that's what I've talked about. I've talked about how you don't need to have it perfect, because the perfect is usually the thing that's stopping you from putting yourself out there. But the seeking of perfection is not a true cause. Like, it's an illusion, because there's no illusion. Perfection isn't real. There is an illusion to achieving it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that is actually real. So I have, maybe like a lot of humans do, swung the pendulum the other way and recommended doing messy video, putting it out there, just recording, getting it done. And of course, I still recommend my basics of making sure that your audio is nice and clear, because you could have the most dog shit of visuals, but as long as your audio is clear, you could pretty much get away with everything. And I've talked about like maybe top and tailing, making sure that even if it is a messy video in the middle, making sure that you go through the basic ASR method, which is answer, story, recap method. And of course, there are plenty of other formats you can use in your video, but those are kind of like your basic foundations of everything else can be messy from there. But as long as you've got those foundational things, it makes it easier for humans to be able to understand what you're saying. Not everyone's going to watch the whole way through, but that's not really the point, is it? It's kind of, the point is getting out there. But then the question of, all right, Zoe, messy, fine, good, awesome. We don't need to be perfect, even if it is for a large company or for an individual solo operator and everything in between. But does that mean that it's actually more authentic? Because yes, you could quite easily craft a whole bunch of messy content and have that be your ideal and your brand. And you may attract not the right people, or it may not reach your level of satisfaction because it's not authentic to who you are, or not authentic to your values of seeking quality. Because there is a bit of a dichotomy between messy and quality, because quality means refinedship. Tradespersonship is, I don't think that's the right word that I'm trying to think of there. When it comes to quality, it requires expertise, it requires experience, it requires practice to get to a good enough skill. And that's what I want to highlight there. Good enough skill. That's what quality means. Does quality mean perfect? No. Maybe that could be a different definition, but for me, that's not what it means. Quality means honing the skills, honing the product, honing the service over time for it to be quality. Doesn't mean it's perfect? No. Messy, usually you are starting out, you are practicing, you are making mistakes, you are doing what you can with the effort and energy that you can to get to the level of quality. So that little pendulum there that we all seem to have. No, the reason I laugh is I was talking to a client recently, and I was talking to them about some methods of thinking that they were having. Now, of course, I'm not a therapist. Talk to your therapist or your counselor about that. But I was highlighting how a lot of her perfectionistic tendencies of pushing that that pendulum swing of her own brand was because she is usually in environments where it is incredibly messy, like the quality is downhill, like the pendulum is all at the other end. So in her personal brand, especially in an industry that is incredibly messy and full of gossip and rumors, I'll let you figure out in the comments which industry this is. And in turn, her personal brand kind of swings the other way. She was she made a joke about how I usually use the pendulum method as like a kind of my go-to way of explaining these things, or my go-to visual of explaining these things. And the reason being is because it's very true. Human nature is inherently very, like we go to extremes. It's only after a very long time of being at either extreme do we kind of come to the middle and be able to really understand something. When you are so hard and fast in, say, beliefs or the way that you think or the way that the world should be, and then you kind of come back the other end, and then you kind of swing back and forth until you're kind of in the middle. And that's just how life is. It's not always going to be this way. And when it comes to having an authentic presence online, now, of course, there are plenty of things combating this, I want to stress. There are plenty of things that the all-powerful internet oligarchs will continue to do, as they always have, because they are about making money. They're not about the human experience. They're about making money and seeing how fast they can poison the world that they happen to live on at the same time, which is why they're so interested in getting off it quickly. We shall not focus on that. I've just, yes, been having a lot of late capitalist rants as of late with people, realizing that there's a lot of infighting with, not necessarily class solidarity, but there's a lot of infighting with people where we should all be looking up, looking to the people who are hoarding all the wealth, hoarding all the resources, holding all the skills for, you know, adding more and more resources when the rest of us aren't that and will never be that. Let's focus on the topic at hand, shall we, Zoe? I wouldn't say purposefully making a messy video makes you authentic, because then that's not authentic, is it? You're trying to replicate a look, or you're trying to maybe achieve a certain trend, or you're not just having fun with it. A large component of the work that I've done throughout my entire life up to this point is in the pursuit of fun, in the pursuit of flexibility, in the pursuit of freedom. These are my own personal values, which have kind of morphed into the stuff that I do here at the Video Confidence Coach. Because being authentic it's not just being authentic to yourself, it's being authentic to your audience. And if being messy, going on tangents is the way that you roll, awesome, cool, that is authentic. Do you need that to be every single video you make? No, because that can become quite tiresome over time. So is the answer to authentic video that everything needs to be structured to the nth degree? No. And this is where that I've definitely noticed, and I'm sure you may have noticed this yourself a lot recently, is that I've been able to, I'm not sure what has kind of flicked in my brain, a little switch, that all of a sudden I can somehow be able to listen to something for like maybe a minute or two, or maybe read a bit of text and immediately go, this was AI generated and AI generated poorly. And this may be a case of it's not X, it's Y, and the telltale signs of an AI language learning model, whichever one it happens to be. And that makes me turn off. That makes me put down what I'm listening to or what I'm watching, because if you haven't put the effort into creating it, why should I have the effort of consuming it? Yes, arguably the act of consuming is a lot easier than it is to create. But why should I waste my time on that? There's been plenty of podcasts of people that I greatly respect. And for people who know me, I listen to like a minimum 4 hours of podcasting a day. And there's a fair few podcasts that I've had to unsubscribe, put down, and just not pursue anymore because of those, because of that seeking of perfection. Or that it's the perfect script, it's, you know, written by AI, and it's covering all these things that I want to talk about. Or you don't have to put the labor into actually thinking and creating and crafting something like this. And that is incredibly disappointing. And I am worried about the future. of the internet as it is, not just because the Ouroboros, the AI snake, is eating itself with content that has been generated since November 2022 and just constantly eating itself up. I'm not going to say that your one messy video is going to combat this entire tidal wave of stuff. And I'm not saying this to scare you either. Your messy video is a step. Your messy video is an asset to what you do. It can be one, it can be many. You're allowed to swing that pendulum around, try a few things out, test things, make mistakes, see what your audience likes and what they don't like. That is what's more authentic to you. Because you're not here for you, you're here for your customer. You're here to serve them and do what you can for them, because your personal brand is your passport. Your, document that allows you to move around this world and, enter a room before you enter. And be there for the people that need to hear from you. I'm aware that this rant has been a little bit more unclear compared to my usual ones, and I apologize if I have not entirely been clear, but I wanted to be authentic with you. My videos can be messy. I do this professionally for others as well as myself, and yet I find myself just creating stuff for a good enough level. And as I have worked with many people on, my BFM is to be consistent, because that is an issue that I have in my life, and I want to rectify that. I want to build a consistent, not just asset, but a consistent portfolio to myself, and being able to spread my message, but also be consistently there for when people need me. Do they need me all the time? No. Do you need your personal brand all the time? Well, it's kind of whether you like it or not. But I want to be that messy, authentic realness. And if that means that my background is flickering for some reason, or if my scripts are wildly incoherent, I'm glad that you've stood with me on this journey so far. And if you want to achieve this for yours, and for your people who need to hear what you have to say, I'd love to have a chat. Disco chat, complimentary, book at a time that suits you. Because I can't predict the future. I don't know where this internet is going to end up. Which is why when marketing your personal brand, which is what I'm all about, requires a lot of effort and is more than just the online content that you put out. To be authentic is to be messy. So I wouldn't say it makes you more authentic. I would just say messy video makes you authentic to the people that need to hear you. And pushes away the people that don't, because they haven't made it as far. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. I'll see you next week. But say, for example, I use a system like LinkedIn, ultimately, because LinkedIn enables me to keep abreast of people and the changes that they've made, either in their business, in their life, or in the work that they do. It has their name and also what they do, so I can use the search bar. Blah, 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 blah. Everything sounds the same. But Zoe, how do I create content that builds the trust with the people that I want to build trust with, but it still sounds like me? I'm just a bit overwhelmed by it. Well, Annika, I am here for you. I'm Zoë Wood, your video confidence coach, helping you forever shine as the obvious choice using your personalized brand strategy. And when it comes to creating content, there's a lot of focus put on it because it's the thing that people see. It's the format that people engage with. So hello, welcome everyone for joining me. it's not the only piece of the marketing puzzle. It's the most flashiest because it's the thing that we look at and consume every day and what we see of others, more importantly. But when it comes to having something that feels and sounds like you, Annika, I want to ask, what is your personal brand doing? And more importantly, who are you serving? Because that is who you need to talk to directly. Not everyone else. Speak directly to them. What is the thing that is linking you? Why are you doing what you're doing? What are the, what are the problems that they're facing? And what are the solutions that you're providing? And what are the values that are between you two for them to be able to achieve that? And if you can't answer those questions yet, it's going to be a lot harder to have content at like the last part of the process that sounds like you, because you're speaking to everyone and yet no one at the same time. You're wildly unclear with your focus and people don't even know what you are doing. And I'm not saying that you need to niche down to one thing. You can talk about many things that you're passionate about and interested in, because this is your personal brand. This is the professional reflection of you. You have the freedom to do and say whatever you want. But the thing that underpins those things are your values. And those are the values that you share with the people who are there to follow you. So have you answered those questions? Make sure, if you can, answer them briefly and succinctly below. And if you can't, I'd love to have a chat with you. Maybe a quick disco chat. Check out my website or the link in bio. Bye. Focusing on one social media platform. Now, I'm sure you may have heard of this from other podcasts, YouTubers, or other platforms out there that you consume as well as us. I would like to thank you for listening to our podcast today, or watching us if you're watching us on Spotify or on YouTube. I'm going to compile myself a bit here. When it comes to social media, very much when it first launched, I was in school and it very much... I gotta keep creating because I've been lazy. I've been avoiding my content and what do I do, Zoe? Well, Yara, I want to answer your specific question, which is what is the easiest way to turn my everyday work, a thing that I do every day, into content that people care about? Well, I'm going to ask you, does the work that you do every day help people? Does it serve people? And that can be said about a lot of things. I don't want to stress. Sometimes it can feel like the work that we're doing every day, especially because we're in it day to day, can get quite mundane and people won't care about that. I'm going to tell you now, people care about the behind the scenes. Even if they're not interested necessarily, they are wanting to know more about how you can serve them and what you can do. And very importantly, how you go about doing that. Not because they want to be you or they want to replicate you, but they want to know what it takes. And the way that you can do this is by maybe having a collection or a library of footage of yourself doing the work that you do, or maybe going out and about in the work that you do. Again, it's entirely up to you, but have the focus of the person in mind. Who is watching this? Why do they care? And if you have this library to go back to, you can use, because I remember in our conversation, you mentioned something about not wanting to just lecture at people, talk at people, which I understand. I do it all the time. Hi, welcome. But I interstitial that with, pieces of both stock footage, because at this point, stock footage is better than AI footage, and it's quite quaint, actually. I just realized that this piece is way too fucking... I'm sorry. I realized I ranted too much and I didn't answer Yara's question at all. So what I'm going to do is fix my hair because she's been a little bit crazy today. And we're going to do that again. Thank you. We're going to do that again. We're going to answer Yara's question. All right, let's do this again. Is this the type of ideal customer trait that you want to have on board for your customers? Or is your company or the business that you do more in league of people who are at that breaking point? People who are beyond the point of, I'm so behind and I just feel like I need to create a whole bunch of content all at once. How do I do this, Zoe? Help me. Well, Yara, I'm Zoë Wood, your video confidence coach. And I want to ask you, the need to create all at once, I'm going to ask you that. Is it because of this feeling of being behind? Because all these people have had so many years ahead of you. And your competitors have too, but you're not You're not stopping the work that you're doing to help the people that you're there to serve because your competitors are doing it. Probably because they're doing it poorly. So for you, when it comes to the easiest way to create content every day is making it a habit, making it a ritual. Is it something that you can record at the start of your day or maybe at the end of your day? Maybe do your best to create maybe a library of content of the questions that people ask you every day. And instead of, now, I know that we had a conversation about this and you were worried about lecturing people. Maybe like how I'm doing it right now. Well, what I do is I use the power of editing to intercut stock footage, better than AR footage to be honest, and be able to have a little bit of fun and a little bit of character and a little bit of whimsy about what I do. Yes, it may be a little bit of a lecture, but I want to be able to have a conversation or start the conversation with people. I need to set the energy because I am the one asking for feedback. I'm the one reaching out and asking for comments. So how do you go about doing the same? Do you have a go at trends? Or do you try and stick to answering those questions that people have? Because if one person is asking them, 10 to 15 people are behind them too afraid to put their hand up and ask the same question. How can you start that conversation? Bring that energy to them because they don't have that energy. They know they want to ask the question, but they don't have the energy. You bring the energy to them, start that conversation, and build from there. You don't need to start everything at once. Start with a few, get that engagement, get those comments, get those questions answered. And then you can start snowballing from there. I believe in you, Yara. Bye. Because at the end of the day, the customers are the ones that pay you. These are the people who are going... Apologies for keep cutting myself off there in the ads. Thank you for letting me do that last one again. I think I had a direction and then I followed that direction and then I completely fell off into a ditch and realizing that just didn't make sense. So I apologize for that sincerely. I may not have gotten the greatest sleep last night, so I'm trying to keep my energy up at a decent level for everyone, and making sure that I am here for you and answering your questions. So today's podcast episode that we're recording, and depending on the time, depending on how efficient I am, no, I'm definitely not efficient, I like to rant, we are going to talk about stopping algorithm-led learning. And this was brought up by Pooja, who is someone who I have multiple conversations with, so hi. But it's a thing that I have noticed in myself, but also I've noticed this from a lot of people that I follow, where the idea is about building your own curriculum. And people have been feeling like that the content diet they're consuming is not serving them and has not been serving them for a very long time. They're feeling exhausted, they're feeling overwhelmed, and they're not feeling curious. And that's what I wanted to touch on today in today's podcast. Even though it's not strictly about personal branding or video marketing or compound marketing, which I'm known for, I think this is something that I want to bring your attention to. So give me a second to take a drink, check all the streams, making sure I'm answering people's questions, and we'll get started with today's podcast. I ask you as the listener or watcher of this podcast, what is your social media doing for you? And then subsequently, what is the priority for you when it comes to social media? And what I mean by priority is not just, what platform or what type of content are you doing or what are you talking about? No, I'm not talking about the minutiae of that. I'm talking about when it comes to social media and your priority for it, where does it sit? And my recommendation for every single business out there, no matter what you do, no matter how much lead traction or maybe even money that you get from people signing up via social media platforms, your website should be your top priority. Your website is the platform that you can control and everything feeds into it. Everything that is your platform, that is your consistency, that enables you to say and do whatever whatever your business is about. And there's very little repercussions because it is your website. When was the last time that you felt curious? Welcome to the Unboring Your Brand podcast, and we'll get started. Yes, that is my genuine question to you. When was the last time that you felt genuinely curious about a topic? And for some of us who have very overwhelming lives, now I hate to use the term busy because busy is kind of just a filler word. It's kind of like a default word. And I've noticed, and I've felt this in my bones for a very long time, that when people have said, well, like, how you doing? And people respond with busy, busy, busy. It's because their priorities aren't aligned. Or their priorities are competing against each other. And that is an overwhelming state to be in, especially a perpetual state to be in forever. So I ask you, when was the last time that you were curious, that you took that time to deep dive into a topic? And was that last time fed by an algorithmic feed? You were scrolling and then something piqued your interest, or dare I say your curiosity, enough for you to follow down that rabbit hole. Did you feel satiated by the end of it? Or did you kind of left feeling empty because you fell down that rabbit hole, but then nothing really came of it? Oh, you got this information now. What do you do with it? And from a lot of people that I work with, all the way from my kids, again, I love you, you are 14, you are kids. All the way from my kids, all the way to my elders who I regularly educate and get educated by. Where was I going with that? I may have forgotten. I truly believe that if you do not use your knowledge, you end up losing it. And this is proven in many neuro studies, and of course I am not a neuropsychologist or someone who is very good at reading those academic papers full of very long words. So do not, I'm not quoting specific ones here. But I want to implore you in today's episode to come up with your own curious curriculum to save your own brain and save your own research and knowledgeability in this, not just this world of AI, but this world of stress that is being put on by the people who have created the AI. I promise this isn't going to be a full late capitalism rant. I'll save that for another podcast. But I wanted to start this podcast with a question that I received from Pooja, who is a great confidant of mine. And it was mainly, I brought up the idea of building your own curriculum, and that kind of piqued her interest and asked a couple more questions. But she wanted to know how she could stop letting an algorithm decide what she learned, because that's what the conversation that we were having. And she was asking, how do I go about creating a curriculum for myself for this year, instead of just falling back on what is being fed to me by multiple different algorithms, all with various agendas, some hidden, some very obvious. And I wanted to give you that today. I know this particular episode is not very personal branding or compound marketing or video marketing strategy heavy, but I think this feeds into everything else that you do. I think this is a very good foundational piece, because we're all about foundations here at the Unboring Your Brand podcast. And I wanted to give you this opportunity to just think about how you are consuming and bringing in information into your informational diet. And I want to stress, what are you then doing with that information? Are you using it to form your opinions? Good, not so good. It depends on the quality of the information, and of course I can't comment on that because I don't know what you're consuming every day. But instead of just mindlessly scrolling, waiting for the next dopamine hit, which, especially during times of stress, which this has been for me, I understand that need. I understand that want to just chew down on that algorithmic junk food, as it were. But if you're here watching, or if you're listening, then there's a heavy chance that you are feeling the same. That the heavy junk food diet has not made you feel good, has not made your brain feel happy, and that feeling of and that feeling of satiateness, of being curious, is just too much brain power that you need or have at the end of the day. And I understand. I sympathize. And I want to take you on a journey on how to do this yourself. So this is a breakdown of what I told Pooja, but also I wanted to give it a couple more details so then we can, so then I'm not just speaking out of my arse. Most of the time I do, but hopefully today I'm a little bit more structured. I lie, I'm definitely not structured. But I want to ask you, and I wanted to address the feeling first, is that in these times where you are incredibly stressed, your brain is being filled with information, usually against your will, and you're starting to feel behind. And in branding, which is what we're all about here. So, looking at my own notes and going down the basic structure of what I was talking about, building your own curriculum is essentially giving your brain something to focus on when those times are tough, where you feel the need for a dopamine hit, but you want to give yourself a project. Now, for a lot of my people who are building personal brands, you know what Okay, we're back on. Are we going to stay back on? Maybe. All right. We're going to do our best in the meantime, for those of us who are live. Apologies for the off and onness. I'm going to do my best to focus, and we'll see what we can do. Talking about project. And now that you have thought about this junk food diet from your algorithms that you have been consuming, now again, it's totally understandable. You're in a stressful environment most day in, day out, and realistically, our ancestors didn't have to deal with this much stuff every single day, or like access every single day, I should say. So I want you to take this opportunity to, first of all, name that problem and name it out loud. And when it comes to your time sinks, now I want to stress, these are not like, you're catching up with family and friends or things like that. I want you to focus on the apps that are just draining your time just for that next dopamine hit. Because again, it's usually you're consuming these like on public transport or in between meetings or sessions or work hours or on your lunch break. It's like you're using this at the end of the day to wind down, but you're never winding down with it, are you? It's that I want you to address that problem in your mind. I want you to name it out loud. Because I want to highlight something to you, that these algorithms are holding your attention, sinking it down, but also they're curating your attention for you. And they're not aligned with your goals. I'm going to tell you that now. Whatever your goals are for this year, they probably don't align to them. Maybe that's just a hunch of mine. Feel free to prove me wrong by sending a message to me. If I'm in the wrong there, feel free to let me know. In these times, I want you to set an intention of setting yourself a project. Not a big project, just a small project. Which is a project which is made up of tasks, which is made up of actions. That's the way that I like to break things down for people, is that a project is an overarching thing The task is the thing that needs to be done, and then the actions are the steps that you take to achieve that task. And I want you to take this action, the single action, of picking a theme or a focus for the next 30 days. Now, this theme or focus could easily be something that is personal branding or business related, or maybe something personal to you. I want you to focus on something that is curious for you, something that sparks curiosity, because that is going to lead you. Even when you've been going at it for a couple of days and you're kind of getting a bit burnt out by it, that curiousness is going to keep you, that curiousness is going to keep you going for the next 30 days. And I want you to also develop this habit, not just for this project, but for future projects to come. Because this tactic has helped me for to be honest, for the past couple of years. I've been doing this implicitly, not just on my focus hobby of personal branding and compound marketing, but it has allowed me to reduce, honestly, my internal overwhelm. It allows me to focus. It allows me to create podcasts like this for you, because we'll get to that next section in the podcast. But focusing on this next steps. So we're focused on what the problem is. We've said it out loud. We've set an intention, and we've given ourselves a theme or a focus for the next 30 days. Now, I want you to think of this theme as a inch wide, mile deep type of rhetoric. This type of stuff needs to be something that can be delved into, and it can't be just broad. It needs to be something very specific, because it needs to be able to A, hold your curiosity, and B, give you something to focus on and become more knowledgeable about. I want to stress, you are not needing to become an expert in this particular area if that is not your goal. Look back to your own goals over the past year. And going back strictly towards your algorithm, because that's what we're talking about today, about curating your own algorithm, is what is the best way that you learn? Do you learn best through audio or video, or maybe reading text? Or you are someone that prefers the structured breakdown of a course from a expert in the field? The reason I ask you this, or maybe it's a combination of a couple of things, the reason I ask you this is because you are someone, as I'm talking to, has lived a life. You have lived a life so far, and you are aware how you best learn things. And if you don't, then take that time to maybe let that be your theme over the next 30 days and figure out exactly how you work best. Because that will allow you to stick to it. I am a very big proponent of having fun, which is why I do what I do, because I find it fun and I want to be able to give that fun and that whimsy and that joy to other people. And then from there, I want you to set a boundary. I know, I'm curating your curiosity like a cat being put one of those little harnesses on, and it goes flops over onto the side like a dead chicken. Just goes. Now that I've given you that visual, I want you, this boundary isn't to hinder you or to hold you back. It is to protect your own attention. Because you're doing this to build up your knowledge, yes, but you're doing this to kind of cure your need for that constant dopamine hit. Again, you're trying to give your brain, especially when it's tired, something more wholesome than just algorithmic dopamine junk food. Again, junk food is nice in small doses. And I still do it from time to time. But I give myself strict time limits. As in, I have an app on my phone that says, hey, you can't watch this for any more than 15 minutes. And then I've gotten to the point where that's enough for me, really. Any more than that, I kind of listlessly move on regardless, and I get bored. So, and this boundary for you is not, like I said, it's not a restriction. It's a method of being able to, as I like to think of it, think outside the box. The box needs to be there to begin with for you to think outside of it. And that goes for being creative or being curious in any particular field. You need to know what the box is first to be able to think outside of it. And be creative needs limitations. I think and honestly, that is a philosophy that I have throughout my life, is that to be creative, you need to have constraints. So these boundaries can include, and are not limited to, so having time limits. Say, for example, giving yourself 30 minutes at the end of the day, or maybe, giving yourself some strict timelines of you're not going to do this on your lunch break, but you're going to do this after work. Or maybe giving yourself some app limits if you are someone who is, your algorithms very much take up a lot of time and energy for you. These boundaries are going to depend on your goals, but are also going to depend on the type of stuff and the curiosities that you are pursuing with this project. From there, we've already established a problem. We've already established what we're going to be focusing on. Again, inch wide, mile deep when it comes to the focus. So get to be a bit specific. And once you learn more about the subject, you can maybe expand it from there. But start off real small. And then figure out how you learn best. Because, of course, you've lived a life. You know how you learn best. Then from there, set a boundary so that it works within your life, but you don't put this off as another habit that you're never going to do, because it needs to be easy. Again, think about your BFM. What is the bare effing minimum? And put that as your boundary. Then from there, I want you to develop a habit of capturing these ideas, these thoughts, these contradictions, or maybe these opinions that you're forming about your theme that you're curious on. This can be as simple as putting it in a notes app or writing it in a notebook. I think there's some studies that show that writing things down is better for your brain. Maybe that might be a good opportunity if you can read your own handwriting. Or maybe another method is to use maybe voice notes, which is what I prefer to use, because your dyslexic girl sometimes at the end of the day does not have the energy. But utilizing and forming my thoughts, putting them in a voice note, and then using a second brain system, which I'll get onto in a sec, allows me to capture this information and use it into something a little bit more tangible for myself. So from there, you're writing these ideas down. Now I want to stress, we haven't got to the part that actually makes this a kicker. I think for people who are building a personal brand or for building a business, I'm going to get to that soon. But for now, we've established that you're focusing, you're being curious about a topic, you're putting it into some sort of capture device. It doesn't need to necessarily have a theme, it doesn't have a focus, you're just putting it down. Because you're trying to put this curiosity into action. You're trying to learn, and then, here is the kicker, for any of you who are growing a personal brand, who are using video marketing, who are using video strategies, who are compound marketing, which is what I'm all about, I want you to put this learning from your notebook, from your voice notes, from your notes app. I want you to put this into an output. So that, not necessarily, and we've talked about this in another podcast where I talked about how the final format is not is not the way that you should be thinking about your content marketing or the way that you market yourself, which is, I understand there's a habit to do. We think about the thing that we are presented with most, and you'll check out more in that particular podcast episode. But coming back to it briefly now, the reason I recommend people having some sort of output with the stuff that they curate, that the ideas that they have, and the information that they're putting together, is because you are doing something with it. You are putting it to action. And more importantly, you are teaching your people about what is curious for you. Now, this can be put into, now you can think of all the different content types and anything that you have preferences for. You can put them into a lecture, a conversation, a little video, maybe a series of videos, a short post, a long post, or maybe a tiny experiment where you try putting the things that you've learnt, putting into action of some kind. Whatever it is. The thing is, I want you to utilize this information that you've been curious about. If you can go the full 30 days, or maybe you can just do it once a week, or as long as there's some sort of consistency to the work that you're doing, that you're building up to something. Now, I want to stress that this isn't for the people that I'm unlike a lot of things that I talk about here on the Unboring Your Brand podcast. This is one of those rare times where it actually is about you, because the end product doesn't entirely matter. Even though I just said you do need an output, when I say it doesn't entirely matter, it's more in the whole universal scheme that this output does not need to get views, does not need to get clicks, does not need to generate leads, does not need to necessarily come out and be the best thing since sliced bread and go viral. It does not need to do that. It needs to be able to allow you to teach people what you know, to use that information that you have gathered, that you've been curious about, share that passion and that curiosity with other people, with the information that you've been able to acquire. Because that does two things. That reinforces that information because you are teaching it, and it allows you to, work through your own thinking. Be it out loud, if that's how you prefer to think, or written down, or in a podcast, and again, in a live stream, however you like. The point is that you're then using that curiosity and putting it into something. Does it have to be a weekly or a fortnightly newsletter? No. But you're putting that information into something that you can share with others. And if others see it, great. If they don't, that is fine. The point is that you have built up that curious habit. The point is that you've built up this curious habit. And you've made it a habit because you're doing it every day. The output is being presented into something. I recommended to a good client of mine where she used this, and I must say this particular breakdown was a lot rougher back then, but she then used this with her kids, where instead of scrolling, because she was noticing this was happening a lot, is every month they do presentation, I think it's every last Thursday of the month or something. And they take the opportunity that after dinner, and these kids are 6 to 12. I'm sorry, I don't know. Sometimes I can't really tell kids' ages. But these kids are old enough to do stuff and have interests. But pulling them away from focusing on, now, not saying that they can't scroll or they can't do some doom scrolling. Junk food, mental junk food, sure. But by the end of the month, they have a 5-minute presentation that they can present however they like on the thing that they are curious about. And she said that this has been a great way to bond as a family. And yes, it requires work, it requires effort, which I know is annoying and I know is sad, but all good things in life do require some effort and some work. And the reason that I bring this up to you is because I want to give yourself permission to learn. I want to give you to give yourself permission to explore things that aren't necessarily useful to know or to yourself, but you can find parallels. You will find parallels. You're human. You will find parallels. And with that permission, I also want to ask that you don't necessarily hinge this learning or this being curious about something that's inherently related to your industry or your business or maybe even what your personal brand is all about. That is okay. Sometimes we need options and chances to explore things that aren't necessarily related to how we make money. Because your curiosity is fed by imagination and energy and creativity. And when you are feeling burnt out, that creativity is harder and harder to find. So in this curriculum that you've set yourself, I want you to give yourself a little bit of flexibility. That I want you to be able to curate this. Now you can do this by, setting up a separate account that is about this particular interest, or maybe that you're finding that the information that you're collecting, the direct fed, the doom scrolling algorithms aren't helping you in this curiosity. That's fine too. You don't have to pursue it with those particular algorithms if they're not helping you. But I am going to ask that in your area of focus, sometimes you're going to follow people that you disagree with. You're going to find things that maybe don't make a whole lot of sense, or maybe are an ist in some way. Misogynist, sexist, racist, all the other ists that aren't coming to mind right now because my brain is a little bit fried. I know there's going to be a lot of that, especially when you're doing anything to do with history. It's all about colonialism and eugenicism and slavery for some reason. You're going to come across that. And I don't want you to necessarily lean out because it doesn't fit your worldview. Now, do I like hearing it? No. But I want you to be able to pick something away from what they say, even if you wholeheartedly agree with even if you wholeheartedly disagree with everything being said, write that down. And what is your opinion on that? Because you will come away with something useful, something that is cemented in your own values and written down or voiced out in front of you. And you can use that in your final output. You can use that to teach. But it also allows you to be human because you have a very clear and strict opinion, which we all should have as human beings. Which I know everyone loves when I bring that up. So going back to what we've talked, recapping what we've talked about, I want you to address and name the problem that you're feeling and make a change. Start forming a habit and making it happen. Making it stick by doing it daily and having an output. Make sure that you choose methods that you best learn from, and do your best to give yourself a little bit of a boundary, just so you're not just sinking your entire head into whichever area of focus you're in. Because if you're building a habit over time, you need to be able to give yourself some limitations. Boost your creativity and all that. I want you to then put that idea into some way of collecting those thoughts and those opinions and those learnings, and then turn them into something. Teach. Educate others. You may have gotten some wrong information. That's probably going to happen on the internet as AI continues to poison the water. Pun not intended. But that is where you'll learn. That is where you'll grow. And that is where you'll continue to be curious. And I want you to swap that need for dopamine, especially short, sharp dopamine from doom scrolling. And I want you to think about micro-learning, about learning facts, tidbits, and useful things that may not be highly relevant to what you do every day, but it drives your curiosity to give you that focus. And with what you learn as a human, you'll inherently want to share it. And I think you should. Because sharing it not just in an output of a piece of content, usually that's because something that you can control, but you can also then have your information that you've learnt and have conversations with family, with friends, in local communities, or local interest groups about this particular topic. Because once there is an output or an outlet for your thoughts, information, and your curiosity, it will inherently spark more curiosity, more creativity, dare I say. Because once you have that output moment, it will all really solidify into something. And it will make it something worthwhile, which is what we do every day. And I hope this is something that you're going to be able to join me in. Now, feel free to reach out to me if you are struggling a little bit with where to focus. I have my Disco chat where I'm happy to have a chat with you, with the second link in the description to help you do so, because I don't want to leave you hanging on something like this. Yes, there are days where I am completely burnt to a crisp, and the idea of pursuing my curiosity fills me with dread and a little bit of bile. So I don't. I give myself a break, but then I do it the next day. I pick up that habit because I haven't been thrown off the horse. I've just slipped a bit, so then I get back on again. Thank you for joining me for this Unboring Your Brand podcast episode. What I'd love you to queue up next in your podcast catcher feed or on YouTube if you're watching me here, I'd love you to line up episode 53 and episode 93. So the two episodes I'd love you to focus on is episode 53, Get Stuff Done Smarter. So this is about using assistive technology to be able to help you capture those into your second brain, your notebook, your voice notes, whatever it is. Use something like this. And episode 93, where we say about trusting your marketing mojo, because when it comes to experimenting and being curious, I want you to be able to trust your own judgment. Now, of course, that episode is going to be more about the marketing side than it is your personal curiosity curriculum. But for you, I want you to trust your own focus and trust your energy on this, because you are better than just scrolling into the dead of night with nothing to really show for it. Thank you. Hope you enjoy yourself, and I'll see you next week. Same time, same place. How does a room feel when you walk into it? How does it sit into it? Is it comfortable? Is it not supposed to be comfortable? That type of rhetoric, which can seem quite far from her initial niche that she was in the first place. But when you think about the box that she's in, well, not really. Her personal brand was strong enough to be able to go to that new area of interest for her, and people followed. Why? Because she had a strong personal brand that built trust, that had a clear message, that had consistent visual appeal, had value-driven content. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My apologies for a little bit of that, I forgot what it's called, little technical glitch there in the middle there. I'm not entirely sure what happened. We had a bit of a jumping on, jumping off, and checking with a couple of the rest of the people in the household. It seems to be a bit of an internet issue thing. Yay me. So my apologies that happened to you while you're during this viewing experience. Hopefully it didn't worry too much in the replay. So bye. Hope you had a good time. If you missed any part of today's stream, you can watch or listen to the whole live stream on the show note page at vcc.training/camera-ready-confessions, and you can find out all the details of that in the description below. So next we are checking out for next week, which will be all about why your best content ideas never make it to camera. So this is where I give myself a chance to do a little bit of a plug for next week, while also doing a little section here where I take the opportunity to read my script. Now, I have had a little bit of feedback that some of the things that I say, where the stuff that I'm doing sometimes is a little bit too wordy and it kind of gets a bit lost. So I'm going to do my best to kind of shorten, sharpen the thoughts that I had. Let's try and do this, shall we? Let me just put you somewhere. Ever had the idea for a great video, but then you let too many tasks and too much time on it, and then you kind of bury yourself before you actually make it happen? I have no idea what that's like. I want you to take the... If that's you, I would love for you to join. If that's you, I would love for you to join me on this week's Camera Ready Confessions with me, Zoë Wood, your video confidence coach, where I will help you haul out the duffel bag of your ideas and let you break everything down and turn it into something that... We've already done that first section, Zoe. In this week's Camera Ready Confessions with your host, Zoë Wood, your video confidence coach, I want to haul out the duffel bag of your best ideas and let's get that back into your brain and back into action with some habits, because it is surprisingly cramped up here in your brain. Maybe let's put some things into action so you don't have to think about them too hard. We can do this together, step by step, and I'll get you publishing those ideas and not just leaving them here on the floor of your brain. Echo! I'll see you Friday, 10 a.m. Melbourne time, or you can catch the replay whenever it suits. Hopefully that will be better for us when, instead of it being a long and windy, we're going to shorten that a bit. So I'll take that opportunity. Confess your camera sins next week, same time, same place. Thank you for joining me.